explored feasibility studies in many different parts of the world, but we can see some of the large corporates in the shipping industry announcing in line with what we thought was likely to happen because of the drivers or the likely drivers of that early adoption pathway. So Japanese companies like Itoshu, who found ways to use vertical integration across their corporate in order to explore early adoption of ammonia. MISC, who've got really interesting domestic opportunity for hydrogen production. BW, who are ammonia or LPG tanker operator, and Exmar in the same category have been both quite quick to talk about this. And Maersk is a well-known example of a leader on the methanol fleet. I don't think this is an opportunity which is at all limited to big corporates or certain parts of the world. It mustn't be if it's to be successful, and it's key that the opportunities that are strong in the developing countries are also taken as well. So some of our work has been to try and estimate where we think the sweet spots, the really key opportunities for green corridors or early adoption might occur. And this is a graph or a map of the world showing in each of the circles where we think a volume of early use of hydrogen-derived fuels is likely, because we can see that there are shipping routes and vessels and hydrogen production opportunities that all coincide to create a really nice opportunity. And obviously we can see plenty of examples in India, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, as well as the routes that we know are being explored and will be facilitated in the next couple of years. But a key concern that we're still hearing is we're concerned that there won't be enough fuel, that we won't be able to ramp up supply of green hydrogen and its derivatives, ammonia and methanol, fast enough in order to achieve the 1.5 aligned targets that the IMO so desperately needs to adopt. And so we've been trying to do analysis to understand that. And we can already see that there's 4 times more green hydrogen committed already in 2022 in project announcements that have been made than the shipping industry needs. So to get to that 5% figure, the shipping industry needs about 1 exajoule, or about 5 million tons of green hydrogen production. And that volume is a quarter of what has been committed in 2022. That's before we hear further announcements that occur over the next few years. So that's one piece of evidence about the viability of this transition. The other piece of evidence is to look at the projected growth rate of production of green hydrogen and ammonia over the coming years. And that's what this rather complicated graph that you can see on the left-hand side with the red, yellow, and green colours is showing. So the dotted lines come from our scenario modelling of the growth rates of ammonia production, in this case, that's needed over the next 3 decades. And they show approximately annual growth rates of the order of 8% per annum. Now, what's interesting about ammonia is it's a product that we already produce 150 million tons of globally, and we've grown that production very rapidly. So ammonia experienced up to 10% growth rate over a period between 1960 and 1980, approximately. So over a 20-year period as the global economy was developing and it was used for agricultural purposes, for fertilizer. So we have vast experience of rapid growth rate in production. We're now talking about moving to a new type of production, renewable electricity with so green ammonia that's produced using renewable electricity. And you can see that commitment added in the bar charts here relative to the existing production of grey. So we need to both decarbonise existing production and grow the demand for shipping. But the projection of what that means is not actually scary relative to what we've produced as a growth rate historically. And that's also reassuring information about the viability. But we didn't want to stop there. And so we've been working with a number of the hydrogen producers globally and some of the value chain of shipping. And this is an announcement that came out on Monday in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh that we've been involved in. And I'm really sorry that we don't have Adani, because I know that some of the Indian producers have been incredibly active as early movers on green hydrogen-derived fuels. But they would obviously be a natural signatory to add on to this as well, as a company that is already well on path for producing the volumes of hydrogen that the shipping sector will need. So to conclude, and sorry for such a brief, rapid delivery of information, but it's the case that shipping's decarbonisation is eminently addressable. This is a sector which can easily decarbonise. It's not like agriculture, which has some really difficult challenges ahead. And that decarbonisation, the move to deep decarbonisation and zero emissions, is already underway. The scale and the speed of the technology will change that's associated with this will mean that this transition defines the shape of the shipping industry this century. It'll be a profound impact because of the potential for stranded assets, the need for market opportunity as we move to increasingly having consumers of shipping services demanding zero emissions, finance demanding zero emissions, insurance demanding zero emissions. All of those will increasingly pressure corporates and customers of shipping to move in a very rapid direction towards 1.5, and those who aren't on that trajectory will be left behind. In our work, ammonia continues to be the leading candidate for scalable zero-emission fuel, and we will continue to see methanol in the short run because of its potential to be used, especially at this point in time, but it doesn't have the scalable potential because it needs carbon feedstocks, which are so expensive and hard to find in a sustainable way. But regardless of which of those fuels we're talking about, green hydrogen is the key building block, and so attention now really needs to be on the commitments from the producers of that green hydrogen and to get them to be aware of the opportunity in shipping and make sure that national governments identify that and build it into their hydrogen strategies. There is a bit of a key issue here about how this is incentivized. So one option is a globally led IMO pathway, and that's highly desirable for so many reasons. It would be a far more equitable way that creates more opportunities in lower income countries. But the alternative is already emerging, and that's for rich consumers in the Western world to pay a premium for the goods they import, and for that premium to be used in the supply chain to justify higher cost fuel use, or acting in combination with rich countries subsidizing in order to play hydrogen advantage. And in the US Inflation Reduction Act and the 300 odd billion that the US is pumping in to help subsidize green hydrogen in the US, we're already seeing that. So unless we get IMO regulation, there's a real risk that the EU, with revenues from carbon pricing, and the US become the dominant centers for production and use of hydrogen in shipping, leaving important countries behind. And we need to work to address that by having a progressive and ambitious IMO outcome. So I think that's my key message, and thank you for the time and for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Tristan, and in particular for all the information. Of course, it's good to take notes of. Apologies for that. The projections that exist out there, in particular with the increased number of projects for alternative fuels, and of course, as you mentioned as well, the different opportunities that are for the shipping industries to meet the goals of decarbonization that it is shared and agreed within IMO. Of course, it doesn't come without challenges, and some of the decisions and actions are outside the remit of IMO. And as you mentioned about consumers paying the price for a premium for new e-fuels, also looking for the opportunities that no one is left behind and that developing countries don't get impacted. And of course, it's part of the discussions, in particular the economic measures that we expect the organization to continue to progress. And that leads very nicely into my next speaker, who's Ms. Astrid Dispert, colleague from IMO. Thank you for being here with us. Who's a project technical manager of the IMO-Norway Green Voyage 2050 project, which of course India is also part of. She's responsible for the overall management and coordination of the project and provides technical guidance and advisory services to all projects and partnerships in the country. She's very active at IMO, and you can probably now start telling us how we are supporting member states as well. Thank you.
Can I just take the mic before I go over? And Arsenio has traveled very far, and he didn't tell us it's his birthday today. So before taking the stage, now he, oh. He's now very embarrassed. I'm sorry, Arsenio, but happy birthday.
I cannot believe you just done that. No, we need to continue. We are on the...
Ladies and gentlemen, again, there's a little interruption because of the minister's protocol, and the bomb squad is here. for inspection. So I request everyone who's got any bombs or anything to move out of the room. Others may please be seated. They are coming out around. Sorry for the interruption. They will take about 2 minutes. Thank you.
Terrible. So we need to walk out? We're not going? Oh, I see. So I was just about to demonstrate that actually I was going to get them. Yeah, I can see that. It was all planned. Right? When? February. Oh, okay. Good. We have a trading to the delegates, 18, 19. I know. Because people now will forget about it.
Okay, nothing found. We'll start. Tristan, all yours.
Okay, thanks a lot. And good afternoon, everyone. And just want to start by thanking the organizers INMARCO and IRS for inviting me to speak. I've been here a couple of days now, and I think it's an excellent conference that has been put in place. And I had the opportunity to speak to a lot of stakeholders from different parts of the maritime sector, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Even though this session is about international developments, and I think Tristan has covered very nicely the challenges and opportunities of decarbonizing shipping, my presentation will focus rather on the implementation of all the developments for developing countries. And I'm going to be focusing very much on the India side and present one project, which is the Green Voyage 2050 project. I'm sure you have heard yesterday from my colleague Joe's. We have a wide portfolio of projects at the moment at IMO dealing with greenhouse gas emissions. And I'll be just presenting one of this, which is the flagship project of IMO and GHG, the Green Voyage, and where also India is a strong and very important partner. And the Green Voyage 2050 project has been launched. Okay. The Green Voyage 2050 project was launched in May 2019, and it's a project that's fully funded by the Norwegian government with approximately $7 million. And the idea is really to support implementation of the initial greenhouse gas strategy. I think we have heard quite a lot about it the last couple of days, but really see how with the project we can support countries in reducing emissions from ships and also imports. We have at the moment 12 partnering countries with whom we actively collaborate. And as said, India is one of our partners. And the initiative here is being led on the ground by DG Shipping, by DG Kumar and Vikrant Rai and colleagues. And just want to take the opportunity to also thank everyone involved. We have been able to progress well, and this really comes also down to the individuals involved in this. India has actually been a partner in the previous project in GLOMEEP, where we have done also a lot of work already on the baseline assessments and some policy work. So this is really a continuation. The project has different elements, and there are different countries involved. As you can see here on the slide, there are new pilot countries and pioneer pilot countries. If I start on the new pilot country side, as you can see, we have several countries which we are trying to support in the development of national action plans. I think I've mentioned a little bit yesterday about this in the other panel, but IMO has adopted a resolution on national action plans and is really encouraging actively actions on the ground. I think we have also covered yesterday the need to really act on all levels, on a global level, which we are trying to do at IMO, but also on a national and local level. And developing a national action plan can really help drive initiatives, drive investments, and next steps going forward. And India has a very powerful national action plan, a very powerful strategy for maritime shipping, the Maritime Vision 2030, which I think it's a fantastic document. So we are supporting the new pilot countries in, first of all, undertaking emissions assessment, creating a baseline, really understanding on a country level what are the relevant emissions that need to be looked at, and then based on that information, create a national action plan which has a really good foundation, a solid foundation baseline, and very concrete activities that could be taken forward. On the other side, what you can see is we are also working with another set of countries that are pioneer pilot countries, and India is one of these pioneer pilot countries, where we are really trying now to move from the legal and more the policy side to really implementing concrete pilot projects on board of ships and in ports. So really transitioning from more policy work to really concrete work on the ground. We have under the project something called the Green Project 2050 Accelerator. For us, it is actually a fairly new area of collaboration for IMO. Our bread and butter in terms of capacity building and technical cooperation has traditionally been on the legal side, helping implementing MARPOL Annex 6, helping developing policies, but now moving to this more